Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening UK, Yorkshire Kris Weekly. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about when is it right to release your bananas. So spring is here, and if you've wrapped up your Musa Basjoo or you've been growing Ensete bananas inside, you're probably thinking when is the right time to get them out into the garden in terms of Ensete maurelii, and for Musa Basjoo, like we have some here, when is it time to take away any protection they've had? In my case, it's a big pile of straw. Well, the answer to this question really depends when you're watching this video, what year it is, where you live, and what the weather's been like recently and what your weather is going to be like in future weeks. So what you're looking for Musa Basjoo is you want to make sure you've gone far enough through winter that you're not going to see temperatures approach -3, -4 for the rest of the season. So in my location, normally sort of by middle of March, we've got a feeling about what the weather's doing and what the long-term forecast is looking like. And normally by middle of March here, I can take away the straw and the protection from most of my Musa Basjoo plants if I've wrapped them at all. Some I haven't wrapped because I didn't have time to do them all, and I like to see which ones can sort of survive without the wrapping. But generally, I do like to put straw around them in winter. And you've got to look at the forecast. So this year it's really nice in March now, and looking forward for the next couple of weeks, there's no big frosts on the horizon. Yes, we'll probably get light frost in the morning and then it'll quickly warm up in the day. The temperature's looking very nice. But this time last year, it was absolutely freezing. The ground was frozen and there was no way I would have unwrapped my bananas at this time because the ground was cold, the air was cold. There were still snow showers potentially in the forecast coming up into the end of March, even though they didn't quite happen, but the weather wasn't looking great, so I didn't unwrap bananas until sort of towards April. So it really depends where you're located and what the weather's looking like it's going to be, happening in the next few weeks. Obviously, if you live in a location where you don't get below -2, -3 in the coast or in a city, you wouldn't have wrapped your Musa Basjoos, or there wouldn't have been any need to wrap them because the trunks can withstand some cold. So here it's quite hard to see. I've got some small plants and I've got a decent sized one here with a good stem, and this one I can just about get my hand around the top, but as we go down I can't get my hand all the way around because it's a good size thick pseudostem of Musa Basjoo. This one here, these have all seen -4, this one's totally fine. Got a small one down here that the top has gone mushy because that did see -4 before I actually wrapped these up, because we got -4 back in November and I didn't take my own advice and wrap these up sort of the end of October, early November. I waited to December before I wrapped these up, so I was a bit late getting the protection on. However, they've still stayed firm as I go down the stems, which is great. So really got to look at, if you're in a location where you have protected them, got to look at what the weather's going to be like for the future, what's going to happen in the next few weeks. So here I'm not going to leave it any longer really. We're in mid-March now. I can take away all this straw because the forecast looks really nice for the next few weeks, and this will allow the leaves to come out. Yes, you do have some frosting, so it looks a bit messy at the top of these stems, but I can see green, especially on this one where we've had growth over the last few days. Nice and green here. The first leaf or two won't look great when they come out. They do have a bit of brown patches on and it might look a bit weak, but by the time we get into April, into May, and it warms up, the leaves will slowly start coming out, and then by June there'll be leaf after leaf every week or so, and it'll be a really big impact in this part of the garden. And wherever you plant Musa Basjoo, those huge paddle-like leaves, you always get a really good statement plant. And if you grow several together, or you've got an established clump with many stems, then it can get a full grove of banana plants, which can look really fantastic in the garden. If you planted them close to the house, and they generally don't need protection unless you live in a cold location. So this video really is about, think about where you live, think about what temperatures you normally get in winter and what temperatures you can get every sort of 15 to 20 years if you can get a really bad winter. Do you want to risk not wrapping them over winter, or are you happy to take the risk? And now, if you're in one of those locations where you can get really cold winters and cold springs, is it worth unwrapping it now, just for the sake of a couple of weeks, when you can hold back a few weeks, let any cold go through in your area, and then unwrap? So what I'm saying is, the stems are sort of hardy to -3, -4 for short periods. The leaves are hardy down to about freezing. So the first leaves normally do get frosted and don't look very good, but then the following leaves always make up for it when the temperature warms up and you get much more quicker growth. So that's Musa Basjoo. Let's talk about onset maurelii. So when it comes to onset bananas, like the ones behind me, bringing them outside requires a hardening off process, which is basically when you start bringing them out in spring, you've got to just give them a few hours to acclimatise to being outside rather than being inside, and then you do more and more hours over sort of a week or two, and finally you leave it out for 24 hours. It has the night to get through as well as the daytime. And obviously when it's been inside, it's been very still air and it's not been a big huge range in temperatures, whereas when you bring them outside, obviously nice and warm in the daytime potentially, and at night time it can get very cold, and we might be thinking about frost depending on where you live. And that frost is what you've got to look out for. So compared to Musa Basjoo, which can stand a bit of frost, the onset bananas can stand down to freezing, maybe -1, -2 for very short periods, but you want to avoid that at all costs. You want them to keep frost free throughout their life basically. So you kept them nice over winter, you've either dry stored or you've kept them potted and growing like this specimen here. Bring them outside basically when the chances of frost have gone in your area. And again, depending on where you live in the world, where you live in the UK, and coast, city, rural, really makes a big difference. Look at the weather forecast again for the next 10 days, 2 weeks ahead. Think about where you live and think about what the frosts are going to be like in your location. And for where I live in Yorkshire, I can get frost definitely well into early May, even short frost, which I want to avoid. So I might bring these out and start the hardening off process sort of late April maybe, or into early May, but they won't stay outside in the ground until the chances of frost have gone, and that here is sort of mid to late May. So if you live somewhere further south, you could start that process end of March, bringing them out and then bringing them in, and then sort of plant them out as you get to the end of April. But again, it really depends on where you live. So you can't listen to somebody who says, yeah, 1st of April, all the bananas outside is totally fine. It really depends on your location and what the weather forecast is like. So with Musa Basjoo, they can deal with some frosts. You can try to avoid it obviously by keeping them wrapped up till later on in the season, whereas onset bananas, you really need to avoid those frosts. So try to not bring them out until all signs of frosts are out of the way and you're not going to get a cold period. So definitely wherever you live, I'll say February is out of the question, March is out of the question for most of the country, April and May is when you can start doing it, and June should be fine for all the country. What I will add for onset bananas is you can bring them out and you can put them somewhere sheltered. So this is basically the hardening off process, which I've just touched on. I've got a big video on hardening off, which I'll do a link for in the description and in the card in the corner. But even if you do get a frost, totally unexpected, a light frost when you have brought it out, it will damage that first leaf or the leaves that have come out. It's not the end of the world. They're quick growing plants. They've got a little bit of robustness about them that the actual plant won't die if it just gets a light frost. So you will find new leaves will come out as the season goes on. Obviously, try to avoid it like I've said, and if at all possible, don't let them have any frost whatsoever. But it's not the end of the world if they get a slight frost. Try to keep them sheltered, give them a cover or fleece if you think you're going to get a frost and you haven't got time to bring in a big plant. But as I keep saying, avoid frosts on both Musa Basjoo and Ensete once they're into growth. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Garden UK. Join me next week where we're doing more in the garden.